We are on page 77 in your workbook, lesson 19.
Right.
While you guys are turning there, and I trust you will.
Wait, what lesson?
Lesson 19.
Oh, I'm so page 77.
Oh.
No, page
So this is a good time for a history review of all of God's people, but I want to do something a little different. Who is the Bible about?
Jesus Christ.
It is. It is about Jesus Christ. But that's a weird thing to say, because Jesus Christ...
The life of the Israelites.
What'd you say?
Life of the Israelites.
No, Daniel actually got it right. The correct
Don't
answer
play
to
with
that
my
question...
Christianity.
The correct answer to that question is Jesus Christ. However, Jesus isn't born in the entire Old Testament, so how can we say it's about him?
No, it's about God. No, but it's the same person.
Well, yeah, the relationship between God the Father and Jesus Christ is one that we will explore a lot next year. Except you were already in that class, so you know about the Trinity and stuff.
Yeah.
I
know SOS.
Okay, well that's good. That's a good step. The rest of you will learn SOS next year. Yeah, actually, you're the only second-year student here, Daniel. So.
And I'm the smartest.
Congratulations
so
on that. Yeah, you sure are. You sure are, buddy.
That's what you
all right, so
I answered the question.
So how can the Bible be about Jesus if he's not even been born yet? We're 2/3 of the way through it, and we haven't even met the guy yet. Timothy?
Explain the time coming up to Jesus.
Explains the time leading up to Jesus. Okay, we can do a little better even than that, though. Brooklyn?
How can we meet him? He's dead.
We'll meet him like in the literature. Also, he's living. He is risen from the dead. He died for like 48 hours.
Risen.
He's risen. Yes, I know. I've been wanting to make that joke like on my office poster or something, but I don't know if it's appropriate. I'm not confident enough in my ability to use risen in a way that may or may not be appropriate for Jesus.
Did you raise up your wife?
Yeah, did you raise up your wife?
I raise up your mom.
No!
I know enough to know that was a good one. All right, so listen. So the reason we can say that the Bible is all about Jesus is because the entire Old Testament points forward to Jesus. I'm sorry. I usually substitute with your face, but that was just too good. So the very first book of the Bible is Genesis, and the very moment that, maybe not literally a moment, the very hour that the first sin takes place. Remember, Jesus is God, so that means he's existed from eternity. Negative infinity to positive infinity. Jesus existed. So was Jesus in existence in the Old Testament? Yes, but he hadn't been born. And the symbol that we use for Jesus, the cross, is a symbol of death. It's a symbol of torture. As the Suffering Servant song says in Isaiah 52 to 53, it is a kind of marring that people hide their eyes from, that we recoil from, are horrified by. And that did not become necessary until the very first sin. And so in the days of Adam, and I know we've done this countless times where we write down our favorite characters from certain periods of time, but in the days of Adam, God said the woman's offspring, that means one of her descendants, will crush the serpent. Will crush. I'm just going to draw a snake here. Sniggity snake. Here's his tongue. And whatever. So his offspring will crush the serpent and be wounded. I'll put that in parentheses. And be wounded in the process. He says, to the woman I will put enmity between you and the serpent, and between your offspring and his offspring. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. Referring to the relationship between Jesus and the serpent who tempted Adam and Eve to sin. Fast forward to Abraham, and that's at about 2000 BC. So we got Abraham here. Abraham was alive in the year 2000 BC. That's what I mean by that. Nothing special happened in the year 2000 BC that I know of. Maybe Abraham could tell you. What's that?
Somebody was born then.
Yes, a lot of special things happened. Nothing relevant to our discussion happened in the year 2000 BC, but Abraham was alive, so that kind of gives us a bit here. But God made a promise to Abraham that all nations will be blessed. will be blessed by his offspring. I'm just going to abbreviate it OFFS, offspring. So all nations will be blessed by Abraham's offspring. And then, in about 1500 BC, we have, who remembers who our character is for 1500 BC?
I want to say Adam.
Timothy?
Oh,
Adam's already up there.
oh yeah.
Not Noah.
No, I mean, no.
I skipped Noah because Noah didn't get this promise exactly.
Moses.
Moses, very good, yeah. Yeah, Noah did not need a promise that his descendants would save the world or something, because Adam already had that promise, and Noah was literally not literally the new Adam, but I mean, every human is descended from Noah. And since this promise hadn't been fulfilled yet, it kind of was understood to be given to Noah as well. But very good. And at the end of Moses' life, before Joshua took over as his successor, a prophet will arise. Moses promised the people, a prophet will arise greater than Moses. What are you guys laughing at?
I don't know. She's just laughing.
I think it's about
Be
fish.
respectful.
I think it's
pay
about
attention.
fitness talk over my mouth.
You like my shirt? My wife gave it to me. She understands my relationship with exercise. So Moses promised Moses was promised, I forget exactly how it was worded, but the end of Moses' life comes with a promise that a prophet will arise from Israel who is greater than Moses himself. Who remembers who our guy is for 1000 BC?
Is this one Noah? David.
David, very good.
I guessed.
No, Noah's back here. I didn't write down Noah because he didn't get a specific promise about Christ. He didn't need one because I already explained why. Watch the video. So in 1000 BC, David is promised a descendant of David will reign forever. This is R-E-I-G-N, not R-A-I-N. Forever. So somebody after David will reign, that is, will rule over Israel and over the whole world forever, for all eternity. No mere man is this. The prophecy was partly fulfilled in David's son Solomon, but it clearly had a much greater fulfillment yet to come. And then, who remembers who our 500 BC guy is? Daniel, do you remember?
Daniel.
No.
Yeah, Daniel, do you remember?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the guy's name? Come on, Daniel.
Is it Daniel?
It is Daniel.
Ah!
Kaylee got it right, but I was going to let Daniel get it himself as much as he
You
could.
still don't know.
You spelled my name wrong.
Yes.
It's D-A-N-W-K.
It's my name, dude. And
Oh,
that
yeah.
doesn't even make sense. And Daniel, gosh, so as we move forward in time, the prophecies about Jesus become far more numerous and detailed. So I can't even think of a single detail. I'll go ahead and throw Isaiah's prophecy down there, since we just put it. Wounded for our transgressions. Daniel did not give this prophecy, Isaiah did, but it was about the same time. And there's just so many. If you remember last week, we talked about that mountain, remember? Or that big statue, rather? Big statue with the head of gold and the chest of silver and the legs of bronze and the feet of iron and stuff like that. And how this big mountain appears and destroys the statue. So that was a prophecy given by Daniel about Jesus. But this will do for our purposes. Brooklyn?
What happened to the very, very fat guy?
Okay.
Oh, he got
let's not
assassinated.
combine.
That's a long time ago. That was back about here, about halfway between Moses and David was the time of the judges. And yes, that was King Eglon. He got stabbed by an assassin, and then he was so fat that his fat kind of blooped right over the handle of the sword, and the assassin was like, "Ew, gross, you can keep it."
That's because he was
He's a left-handed assassin.
Yeah, he was left.
Yeah,
He took his right side.
I used the wrong hand.
Was Daniel alive when
I don't think
Jesus
we
was
do
born?
acrobatics here.
So you
Daniel was not alive when Jesus was born. Daniel was alive in 500 BC, and Jesus was not yet born for another 500 years. So no.
Well, don't they live for like 1,000 years?
way back before Noah they did.
Oh.
But after Noah, we got cousins marrying cousins, and the whole gene pool kind of collapses, and now everybody's an inbred degenerate mutant, and we can't live 900 years like a normal person. Instead, we
Were
can
they born
only,
with like 3
can
arms?
only live like 90 if we're lucky. Huh?
Were they born with like 3 arms?
No. They were born with whatever the crap it is that kills us after 100 years. They were born with predisposition to heart disease.
Wait, so
And,
like the first person that
whatever
died,
the crap else.
the one they were like what 90 or something. It was like oh no.
Well, it was a bit of a decline since for some reason since half the class is gone. I guess I'll go ahead and read. This is Genesis chapter 9, I think. Where are we going? No, Genesis 10. Where are the names? Or the numbers? 11, here we go. So Shem, who is the son of Noah, Shem lived 600 years. That was fairly normal. Noah lived, I think, 650. Shem lived 600 years. Shem's son Arphaxad lived 403 years. Actually, 438 years. Yeah?
Why did they live so long?
Because that was how God made them. God made Adam and Eve to live forever.
If you
Right.
pay
Yeah.
attention, you know.
Because we're inbred degenerate mutants. What'd you say, Hayden?
If you pay attention, you know. Right
there is that.
Yeah.
I try to reserve those kinds of comments for people who habitually don't pay attention, like your neighbor. But I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm being really hard on you today. I should have laid off after that one comment that I made. That was not fair.
Today.
So anyway.
My mom. My mom.
All right. So we've got Noah lived 650 years, I think. His son lived 600 years. His grandson lived 438 years. His great-grandson lived 433 years. His great-great-grandson lived 464 years. His great-great-great-grandson, or whatever we're up to, lived 239 years. The next one lived 239 years. The next one lived 230 years. The next one lived 138 years. And
Wait, what's the
then
oldest?
the next one lived 205 years. Huh?
What's the oldest person that's like living right now?
I don't know. That number
God.
probably changes very regularly. God was
103.
No, it's more than
103. Well,
Actually, it's not.
we just had to say goodbye to Ann Keppen, who was 98 years old.
Oh my
when
gosh.
she died.
There's someone in Fringe that's 103. My teacher just sourced.
Yep. I believe it.
Is someone like that?
Anyway, I want to get back on track here. Oh my gosh, it's already 4:26. So we are at this point in history. Okay. Remember that David was the second king of Israel, and after David there was this split where they had the northern kingdom called Israel and the southern kingdom called Judah. Israel was always bad. Judah was usually bad. and so Judah lasted a little longer, but frankly God had made a covenant all the way back here with Moses. He'd made an agreement with the people that if they follow his laws, he will prosper their land, and if they rebel and abandon his laws, then he will destroy their land. And so he was extremely patient with them as they rebelled and disobeyed his laws. But eventually God said, all right, I'm calling in my end of the agreement. You guys aren't doing your job, so I'm going to do mine and wipe you out. And he did. The northern kingdom of Israel, remember, was completely obliterated. The southern kingdom of Judah, though, was given a promise that they would be exiled for 70 years, and after 70 years, they would be allowed to return to their land. And that return is what we're going to be reading about here on page 77 in your workbook. Think of a time when you had to wait for something. What was the hardest thing about waiting for it? What's something you had to wait for, Brooklyn?
When I broke my arm for it to actually get fixed.
Yeah? How long did that take?
Because when I first broke it, I had to go to Perm, then I started Bar, then I had to go to Fargo, then I had to wait 2 days for surgery, and I had to go back to
You
Fargo.
go then.
That sucks. And how long before your arm was healed?
It took about September 15th, and then I actually got healed.
Okay. New story.
Okay, Aiden really wants to tell his story. Go ahead.
Oh, I have to wait until it's actually I don't know if I can wait anymore, but for me to wrap my It was a long
You
way.
have to wait all winter to ride your dirt bike
Yeah.
again. Yeah. You like
Some
riding dirt bike? I didn't know that. Cool.
Just ride your
Huh?
snow.
Yeah, I said you like riding dirt bike?
bike.
Yeah, I just bought it
Oh,
last
nice.
summer.
Daniel?
To steal Aiden's girlfriend.
Okay.
Timothy, is there something you
I
have
thought that
to
would
look
take very long.
That one point, I was hungry
Okay.
for 5 hours.
It.
Hell,
I didn't know.
it took a long time for me to stop being hungry.
Okay, did eating eventually solve your hunger problem? Huh?
Yes.
Yes, but waiting when you're hungry feels like forever, doesn't it? Kaylee?
I had to wait to get a different milk because mine was chunky.
Wait, what
You
was
didn't
it?
want to just drink the chunky milk?
It tastes like cottage cheese.
You didn't drink it. Someone drank it after I spit it back in it.
In this lesson, we see God's people released from their exile and sent back home. Their waiting in one sense was over. In another sense, it was just beginning. Go ahead and turn the page here. So, these are the last books of the Old Testament that we haven't looked at, assuming we lump all the prophets together, even though we didn't look at most of those. The Old Testament was written from the time of Moses, where Moses wrote about the things before him, and then various authors have carried the history up to about here. And it's not long after Daniel's time that the Old Testament is closed.
Yeah.
Okay, so you remember what happened to Jerusalem when the exile began? What happened to Jerusalem?
Can I get a napkin?
Didn't they get like surrounded or something?
Do I even want to know why you need a napkin?
I swallow juice.
Alright, go ahead.
Wait.
What do you need? Sit down. I'm tired of everybody leaving in the middle of class. I build breaks into the schedule so that you don't do this. What happened to Jerusalem after when the Israelites were exiled? Somebody said it was surrounded. That's very good. That happened before, right before the people of Jerusalem were exiled. But let's take it from there. So they were surrounded. It was a siege. The people were starved. Eventually, the city was conquered. The people were led away in exile. And what was done with the city?
It was destroyed.
It was absolutely destroyed, burned to the ground. The walls were forcibly torn down. The temple was stripped of all of its valuables and then burned. So there was nothing left. Not even the foundation of the temple remained, which I think means they actually took pickaxes and stuff to it. They did not just conquer the city. They obliterated the city. It was gone.
Dang.
But after 70 years in exile, so remember I mentioned that the people who conquered Israel were called Assyria, or the people themselves were called Assyrians. Assyria, what?
They're taking on Babylon.
That's right, yeah. So after Israel was destroyed by Assyria, Assyria itself was destroyed and taken over by a new country named Babylon. However, it was kind of more of the same, and Babylon ended up destroying the people of Judah. Yeah?
Is it called Babylon because people keep
Babbling on and on. No, I actually don't know why it's called Babylon. But we're going to say Assyria destroyed Israel, and the Babylonians destroyed Judah. Sort of. I'm just going to put an X through them, but remember they come back. After Babylon was destroyed, the next empire to rise was called Persia. And Persia, one of the first acts of King Cyrus the Great, the first king of Persia, one of the first things he did in office was he restored Judah once again. He actually proclaimed that the people of Judah, the people who used to live in Jerusalem and the surrounding territories, are welcome to return. He claims that he actually received a vision from the Lord to that effect. Because remember, these are not Christian empires. These are bad. They're bad news. And yet Cyrus the Great claims to have had a vision from the Lord telling him to send the Jews back to Judah. And so he was like, well, okay. So he made a decree to send the Jews back to Judah. Let me just read what it says here. This is on page 78. How about somebody else take a turn to read? I'm looking for the proclamation of Cyrus.
Oh, is that our Bible?
No, that's on page 78.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, well, Brooklyn made a move first, so she's going to read it for us. Go ahead, Brooklyn. The Proclamation of Cyrus.
If you remember from the last lesson, the tribes of Judah were led to exile by the Babylonians. During the time of the exile, the Babylonians' empire was
Conquered.
By the
Persian.
Empire. Under the leadership, something happened.
Keep going.
Read
Ezra. Yep.
Ezra from the text finds all the ways God was looking through the Persian king.
So in the interest of time, I'll read Ezra 1, verses 1 through 5. This is the very, very beginning of the book of Ezra. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of the Lord by the mouth of Jeremiah might be fulfilled, the Lord stirred up the spirit of Cyrus, king of Persia, so that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom and also put it in writing. Here's what it says. Thus says Cyrus, king of Persia, the Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has charged me to build him a house at Jerusalem, which is in Judah. Whoever is among you of all his people, may his God be with him, and let him go up to Jerusalem, which is in Judah, and rebuild the house of the Lord, the God of Israel. He is the God who is in Jerusalem. And let each survivor, in whatever place he sojourns, be assisted by the men of his place with silver and gold, with goods and with beasts, besides free will offerings for the house of God that is in Jerusalem. Then rose up the heads of the fathers' houses of Judah and Benjamin, and the priests and the Levites, everyone whose spirit God had stirred, to go up to rebuild the house of the Lord in Jerusalem. So, this is no joke. Cyrus, the king of Persia, which is this massive empire, he has a vision from God who says, rebuild my temple in Jerusalem. And so he says, all right, and he sends everybody who cares about the Lord. Remember, the Lord is his name. What does the Lord mean when we see it in all capital letters in the Bible?
God.
Not just God, it's a very specific meaning.
I mean, it's like, it's the.
What did God tell Moses? Huh?
Make it stand out.
No, not to make it stand out. When Moses asked God what his name is, yeah?
It's a word.
It's a very special word, yes.
I am.
I am, that's right. When Moses asked God what his name is, God said, I am who I am, and you will tell the people that I am has sent me. And the Hebrew name of God from that point on is, we pronounce it Yahweh, although we're only like 90% sure that's how it's pronounced. But it looks like this. It's 4 letters, and they roughly translate to YHWH, because they don't have vowels in Hebrew.
Is that Yeehaw?
No, it's Yahweh. We're pretty sure that this vowel is ah, and there is no vowel here, and that this vowel is eh.
That's wrong, because Y can sometimes be a vowel.
Okay, well, in this case, it's a consonant. And yes, actually, the Hebrew word yod is sometimes a vowel, you're right.
What is that one
But-
above that?
Huh?
What is that one above that?
This one?
What's that?
That's a yod. This is an M.
Yoda?
No,
Like Baby Yoda?
the thing, the middle one.
This?
I love
The
that.
That's
middle.
an arrow. This one, that's
Yeah,
Hebrew.
What is that?
That is the Hebrew, it's called the Tetragrammaton, or 4 letters. This is,
Sean?
the Hebrews did not say the Lord's name. They had such a high respect for God's name that they wouldn't even say it, even when it was in the Bible. So when they came across the name of God, these 4 letters, they would instead say Adonai, which means the Lord. And so also then, just as the Hebrews would say Adonai, so also we say the Lord. And we do it with these capital letters. Have you noticed that in the Bible? That sometimes you've got a capital L and then other capital letters that are like smaller than the L? When you see that specifically stylized, the Lord, that means that in the original Hebrew text, this has appeared. And we would transliterate it this way, but just as the Jews would read that Adonai, so also we write it then the Lord, like that. So all that to say, when King Cyrus of Persia sent the Jews back to rebuild the Lord's temple, he actually called the Lord by name. When he said the Lord is the God of Jerusalem, that is what he had in mind. His theology wasn't perfect. Of course, we know the Lord is the God of heaven and earth, but in King Cyrus's mind, every region has its own gods, and he is a superstitious fellow who just wants to make all the gods happy. So he says, the Lord is clearly the God of Jerusalem, so I'm going to send the Jews back to Jerusalem, and I guess the Lord didn't see fit to correct him there. So Cyrus the Great allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem, and if you noticed from the text, the king also provided for them silver and gold and beasts and building materials and everything that they would need to accomplish this project. So Cyrus was very generous to God's people. Unfortunately, while they were building the temple, they faced resistance because Judah was not loved by her neighbors, and some of her neighbors remained, and so they caused trouble, but ultimately the Lord saw it through. And that's what that other bit from Ezra 3. But the whole book of Ezra is really about God's people overcoming the opposition to building the Lord's temple and actually building it. There's a picture of the temple there on page 78. Okay, is Aiden out there making faces or something? Come on, Aiden. Wood.
Oh, he's pooping. You can smell his poop.
I'm
You
glad.
know in those movies where like they make pie and like goes in their nose? That's what it like poop.
All right, let's just keep going. So King Cyrus told the Jews to go build God's temple again in Jerusalem, and he gave them the materials and stuff to do it. Very long story cut short. You can see a picture of the temple at the top of page 78 in your workbook there. The original temple to God was built by Solomon, the son of King David, and it was magnificent. The second temple was quite a bit more modest. It was still nice, but it was not anything like Solomon's. And that temple was built by the governor of Judah, because from this point on, Israel no longer has kings. They're always, the king of Persia didn't say the Jews get to have their own land back. He just said that the people who used to come from the Jewish province of my empire can now go back to the Jewish province of my empire. But from that point on, the people of Israel are just subjects of a larger empire. But the governor of Israel is named Zerubbabel, and so the temple is named after him because he was the leader who oversaw the project and was himself a faithful Jew. And it's a fun name to say, so there it is at the top of your page, Zerubbabel's temple. All right, yes, please turn around, Brooklyn. Don't let Daniel get your attention. When you give Daniel your attention, he wins. Or whoever's wearing those ridiculous glasses.
They're my Oakley/.
Anyway, so under King Cyrus, the Jews were allowed to rebuild Jerusalem. I'm getting ahead of myself. They were allowed to rebuild the temple. Which I guess looks something like this, according to the inside of your book there. There's probably like a portico or something out in front. Anyway, so you got a couple pillars there, and what have you. What's that?
It does not look like it.
Hey, I'm doing my best, right? And I'm drawing from memory. So there's some doors, and in any case, the outside of the temple was actually, fairly rectangular. I guess there are like these extra chambers here that I didn't draw. So there's that. I think I was looking pretty good there. What'd you say, Timothy? Was that you talking? Huh?
My grip was slipping.
Storage, actually. There was a lot of important stuff was stored in the temple that didn't always get used, and so those outer chambers would have been for storing stuff. Anyway, this drawing is not very good, but that's okay. There you go.
Hey, guess what?
What?
My grandpa slipped and fell. I broke 3 cartons of eggs on him.
You broke what?
3 cartons of eggs.
Cartons of eggs. That sucks. All right. So anyway, focus here. So Ezra led the rebuilding of the temple, and that was great. Except the temple was on top of a mountain that was surrounded by the burned-out husk of what had once been the city of Jerusalem. And that leaves them vulnerable to attack. I know nowadays we don't think much of walls around cities because nowadays we have airplanes and bombs, and so walls don't really accomplish much. But in those days, a wall was very important for the safety and security of the people living in and around the city. And so Nehemiah's book is about the incredible architectural effort of rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. This is not to scale, like, at all. The actual city of Jerusalem is much bigger than this. But in any case, Nehemiah is all about the rebuilding of the walls of the city of Jerusalem. And it's a rough start. The old people who remember the glory of Jerusalem before it was destroyed wept when they saw the new temple being built, because they saw how much glory was lost in between the old temple and the new temple. But the younger people celebrated because it was a new beginning for them. And actually, King Herod, the king who tried to kill Jesus when he was just a baby, King Herod actually commissioned a rebuilding of Zerubbabel's temple, which actually did make it huge and grand and comparable almost to Solomon's temple. And it took like 40 years to build King Herod's temple. And when it was finally finished, I think it lasted like a decade maybe before the Romans destroyed it.
Wait, what's a decade?
10 years.
Oh my.
It might have been longer than that, but yeah, Herod's temple took a very long time to build, and a very short time for the Romans to destroy, because they didn't like the Jews either. The book of Esther also takes place at this time. I'm going to have you guys reading Esther for homework, but Esther was a secretly Jewish girl who was chosen to be the queen of the Persian Empire. But she did not reveal her heritage because, the Jews don't have the best history when dealing with racism and things like that. And so her uncle was basically like, don't tell him you're a Jew and everything will be fine. But then this other guy got angry at her uncle, of all people, and found that her uncle was a Jew, and was like, that's it, I'm going to kill all the Jews. The guy literally goes full Hitler.
Are we Jews?
What are they?
No, we're not Jews.
Oh my gosh.
What's a Jew?
Yeah, a Jew, that's a good question. A Jew is somebody from the nation of Judah, which is the southern kingdom.
Is that why they're called Jews?
It is, yeah.
Why aren't they called does?
Because
Or little
like-
whistlers.
Because not.
No,
Why aren't you called Yol? Maybe I'll just call you Yol, Daniel.
Okay, Anne.
The Jews are descended from the tribe of Judah, and the place where they lived was called Judah for centuries before it was conquered. And when they returned to it, it was still called Judah, or some variation. In the New Testament, it's called Judea, because the Romans like to add their own spin on how to pronounce words. But the people from there are called Jews, and that's where it comes from. In any case, because there was a guy who literally wanted to kill all the Jews, Esther risked her life to reveal to the king that she herself was a Jew, and the king took her side by God's grace, and all the Jews were saved. And so that's the main account in the book of Esther, which you'll be reading for your homework next week. Unless you don't read for your homework, right,
Aren't
Ian?
there people still these days that want to kill Jews?
Yes, there are.
Why?
Like what kind of people?
You know, I honestly don't understand why people hate the Jews.
What kind of people want to kill them?
Nazis. They call them neo-Nazis nowadays, which just means new Nazis. I don't know. You know, the Jews, they look like the rest of us. Their religion is very
How do they
similar
even
to
know?
Christianity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I'm not racist against black people or Hispanic people or something, but I can get it because they look different. You know, they have
Yeah.
dark skin. You can look at him and be like, that guy's different. I hate him.
But
And
like Jews,
that's
yeah.
bad. You should not think that, but I get it. But with the Jews, it's like, he looks like me. And his religion is very much like
Are
mine.
they a little darker, like a Mexican kind of look?
Not really, no. The people of Israel might have been, but nowadays, most Jews are descended from some province in Eastern Europe. They're called
Do
Ashkenazi
they speak a
Jews.
different language?
They can. Most of them speak the native language of wherever they
Do you know
live,
the
but
Hutterites?
there's a language called Yiddish. The Hutterites are a brand of Amish, I believe.
Yeah, you know them?
I've heard of
I
them.
saw an
I
Amish
don't
in
know
this
much
this
about
morning.
them.
They're good people.
Yep, and most modern Jews are also good people, which again raises the question, why are they so hated? And the answer is, I don't really get it. But in any case, it's nothing new. The Jews have historically been hated by somebody for pretty much their entire existence. And thankfully, the Lord was with them during the time of Queen Esther, and it all worked out for the best. But you'll get to read that story. It's a cool story. Where God's people are saved by.
How did Amish come along?
That is, we never really talk about that in confirmation, but the Amish are descended from a brand of Protestant Christian from like 500 years
Okay, so
ago.
Amish are Christian?
They are Christian, yes. They're
Do they
just
go to
really,
church?
really weird Christians, huh?
Do they go to church?
They don't go to this church.
Oh.
They have their own churches that they worship at.
Is
Yeah.
it true like they like you don't do it with their siblings? They have more siblings and kids.
I doubt it.
No, actually, I heard that from an Amish guy.
You read this one.
Okay, well, okay, fine.
My sister's pregnant.
I do
Amish
not
guys.
know Amish mating habits. Okay, I would suspect that
I do.
Everything
they
else
do
about
not
it.
involve inbreeding,
I'm
but
Amish.
Oh
there's
yeah.
probably exceptions. Okay,
No,
there's-
no, no.
yeah, there are plenty of people from Florida who inbreed. We get made fun of for it. So, but you know, this doesn't mean everybody in Florida is an inbred redneck. There's just a good chunk of them. Anyway, I want to get to the end here. So the book of, not the book, the Old Testament ends right about here. The last book of the Old Testament to be written is the book of Malachi, which very fittingly is the last book of the Old Testament, if you look at your table of contents. And Malachi was written at about 400 BC, give or take. And so between Malachi and the coming of Jesus, God is silent. God does not send prophets to speak to Israel or comfort them or anything. The Old Testament is canonized, and so they have the whole Word of God in the Old Testament. And we do have historical accounts of what happened after that. They just aren't in the Bible because they aren't about Jesus. It's just kind of like the history of the Jews. So what we do know is that, look on page 79, there's an orange box timeline there.
Oh, I'll read that.
Okay, fine, read the orange box.
The
Intertestamental period.
With a partner brainstorm everything you know about the ancient Greece and ancient Rome. You have 30 seconds. Go!
Alright, go, 30 seconds,
know,
what do you know about Greece and Rome?
They're not nice people.
Not nice?
Greece.
They like us. They not like us. What?
Yeah,
They Greece, they
30
like
seconds, come on, Brooklyn!
Greece,
Brooklyn, do it! You got 30 seconds, Brooklyn! Think!
Greece is like
What?
my fries.
They have their own language, okay.
Oh,
Good
yeah.
job, that
It's
is
the only thing
not
I think
technically
of.
incorrect. What is it, Tim?
Legs of iron.
Legs of iron, okay, yes, so in the statue.
Grease is what I put on my fries.
Legs of iron, very good. What'd you say?
Greece is what I put my fries in.
Okay, yeah, not that kind of Greece, sorry.
I never specified.
The Greeks, the people of Greece are called Greeks, so that might,
Oh, we just did that in school.
Yeah.
okay.
Social.
Are you guys in the same class?
No,
No.
I'm smarter. I'm not higher
I'm in
class.
different grades.
I know, but
Yo, bro.
Alright, so the Greeks, they had their gods, they're kind of famous for that, right? You got Zeus and Hercules,
Just joking.
and I'm trying to think of other famous Greek gods. They built incredible architecture, they were kind of the fathers of mathematics and philosophy. In many ways, the Greeks and the Romans are the forebears of the modern society.
No way.
What do you think it was?
No, forebears is a word that means like came before us.
Caleb.
Don't worry about it.
Seen seventh grade.
Yeah.
Anyway, if we were to continue, so this goes beyond the Bible, where the Old Testament ends. Persia's still in charge, but history marches on, and eventually Persia is taken over by Greece, and that becomes the Greek Empire.
Yeah, we'll do
And then
that.
eventually Greece is taken over. Anyone know who took over next?
Is it?
I forgot their name.
I think somebody said it.
Rome.
Rome. Very
We're
good.
learning about him
The
too.
Roman Empire
Yeah.
took over after the Greeks.
We're learning
And
about him
and it was under the Roman Empire, in the early days of the Roman Empire, that Jesus enters the picture. And so when we read the account of Jesus, the Romans are going to play a very important role, both as the hated oppressors of Jewish society and also the ones who carry out Jesus' own crucifixion. They invented crucifixion, the Romans did.
Yeah.
It is to this day the single most painful and terrible way that has ever been devised to kill a person. So naturally, Jesus was subjected to that.
That's
Crucifixion. Hanging a guy on a cross for days until he eventually suffocates. What actually kills people on a cross, fun fact, is suffocation. Because when you're hanging there, your lungs cannot fill properly. And so the only way to fill them is to push off with your feet
How are you
so that you can
surviving
take
right
a
now?
little bit of breath. Huh?
How are you surviving right now?
Well, for one thing, I'm not hanging. I'm just holding my hands up.
How long did God survive?
Wait.
Jesus lived only for hours.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus lived only for hours because he had been beaten to shreds before being nailed to the cross. But usually crucifixion.
What did nails just like?
Draining out stuff.
I don't know what you're trying to say.
Isn't
with
it
this.
like go through your hands?
So if you were actually hung by the hand, yes, then the nail would rip through the flesh. That is why most artist depictions accurately show Jesus being nailed here.
Yeah.
Well, like, you know the
Which-
cross? Why can't they just like wrap a rope around your hand?
They might have done that too. They nailed it because that's more gruesome, and the whole point of being crucified is you're being tortured to death.
Did they like take a hammer nail or like they?
Oh yeah, like a big nail.
No,
not like
they
a
could
carpenter's
drill.
nail, like the kind of thing you hold in one fist and hammer it into place.
So like a railroad track nail kind of.
Yeah, like a railroad spike. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn?
Wait, but I thought when you like burn for a while and it's like it's time to breathe that fire, you're supposed to go like this. So it opens up your lungs.
Or what?
No, well, you can't do this because your hands are nailed to a cross.
Oh
So
my
you're stuck
God.
like this.
So
But anyway, what you do to breathe is you push off with your feet. If you push up with your feet a little bit, you give yourself just a moment to take a breath. And so what actually kills you is that eventually you guys got to sleep, and it's the sleep deprivation and just the utter lack of strength to even lift yourself up to breathe. That finally kills a person. That's why when Jesus was crucified, they wanted to kill the guys in a hurry because they didn't want them hanging up on the Jewish holiday. So they actually broke the legs of the thieves on Jesus' left and right because then they couldn't hold themselves up. So then they suffocated in a matter of minutes, and that was that. But Jesus was already dead, and they tested that by poking him with a spear, and blood and water gushed out as a separated mixture, which is what happens when a person has been dead for a while. So your
Wait,
blood
there
is
was-
separated.
It's like a deer. It just kind of explodes.
Well, it doesn't explode. He hadn't been dead for that long, but they pierced his side with a spear, probably aiming for the heart. They might have hit it. And then from the hole, blood and water came out separately.
Why what?
Which, because most of your blood is water, but when you die, there's nothing forcing the blood and water to stay mixed together, so that it slows down and the blood settles out.
When you get dehydrated, like where does your water go? Like do you pee that out and then you have nothing but blood in your body?
Well, when you're dehydrated, you still have a lot of water in your body. It's just that you need all of that water, and you need a little more besides.
What happens if it's only blood in your body?
Then you die, because most of what we would call blood is water. But if somebody dies for a while, the blood separates from the water. It's called a suspension.
So
We
is
are okay. Go ahead.
that- Okay, so isn't it like when people die or like that or choke? That's why is that why their blood is so like watery and stuff? Because it's mostly water.
It might be. If a person dies like because they got shot in the head or something, like in a movie, then that's just ordinary blood because you have to be dead for a while. On the ambulance, one of the signs of death that they tell us to watch for is called mottling. And that's when the parts of your body that are lower, if you're lying down, it's going to be the parts closer to the ground, start turning purple because the blood is settling out of the suspension that normally flows through your veins and arteries, and it gets darker at the bottom because gravity pulls it out.
What would you do then if that happened?
If the person is dead, then we call the paramedics to confirm it because we're not authorized to confirm death, and then the person is dead.
So
And
if that
the
happens,
takes
you
somebody
can
to the
call
body. All right, we can talk more about this afterward. All of this, though, has just been to close out Old Testament history and show you how all of it, from the very, very beginning, the moment sin enters the world, practically speaking, there is a promise made about Jesus. And all throughout biblical history are these repeated promises that God makes to his people in whatever form they take, whether it's a family, whether it's a bunch of slaves, whether it's a nation, whether it's a bunch of exiles, whoever they are, they receive these promises about God of a coming person who will save them. And these are the kinds of things they're told. He will crush the serpent to introduce death into the world. He will bless all nations of the earth. He will be greater. He will be a prophet greater even than Moses. He will be a king greater even than David. He will be wounded for our transgressions. He will be destroyed, and yet somehow he will still live. And all of that is looking forward to Jesus. For the next several weeks in our class, we will be focusing, we've been covering centuries of history in one go. We're going to really slow it down for the next few weeks and just talk about the life of Jesus, most of which is only about 3 years that we really focus on, the years of his ministry. So that will be what we focus on next time. For your last homework assignment of the Old Testament, we have you looking at the book of Esther. So don't go anywhere because we haven't closed in prayer. There's your memory help. There's your homework. And then after we pray, I'll give you back your graded homework assignments as well. I have not graded your sermon summaries yet. I am only I'm only one man. Yeah, everybody has their.
Trust.
Okay. I trust that you did the other ones too, but I need you to trust that I don't have them.
I've 3 done, I know that.
Okay, well, yeah, I need you to trust that I literally don't
I
have
have some
them.
notes to turn in.
Yeah, you can take this
I have
and
some
one for your
notes to
brother.
turn in, by the way.
And let's close in prayer, and then I'll hand back your graded homeworks.
Hold on.
Hold on, I don't like to pray while people are being active, so there we go. All right, all your focus on the Lord. Here we go. I thank you, my heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ, your dear Son, that you have graciously kept me this day. And I pray that you would forgive me all of my sins where I have done wrong, and graciously keep me this night. For into your hands I commend myself, my body and soul, and all things. Let your holy angel be with me, that the evil foe may have no power over me. Amen. All right, let's see, this is nobody here today, so I'll put that one down. Daniel.
Daniel,
It was good.
you bad
There you
boy.
go.
100.
Haley. Yep.
Let me see that
There's a
paper.
beat. There's a beat.
Let me
There's a
see that
beat.
back of the paper.
There's 100.
Let's see the back of the paper.
94.
No, wait, that's Bailey. Sorry, it's wrong.
Let's see the back of the paper, boy.
Here's Brooklyn.
Always at the back. Oh, you can
And
go.
Aiden.
50. Okay, that's.
Aiden, there you go.
28%.
If you want to announce your own grades, you may. I have a policy of not discussing other students' grades.
14.
No.
I was 40% so far. 5%.
As a reminder, in my class, your different kinds of assignments have weights. So your homework is 40% of your grade. That's most of it. Or that's not most of it, but So that's the biggest chunk. Your memory work is 30% of your grade. Your sermon summaries.
What's our homework?
Sermon summaries are 20% of your grade, and your class participation is 10%.
Wait, what's the homework again?
The homework is 40%. Yes, these are sermon
So
summaries.
that's like the most.
Yeah. So if you, basically what that means is you should put most of your effort into homework if you have to pick and choose where you put your
What if we
effort.
do like 1,000 sermons?
Daniel.
What?
What if we do like 1,000 sermons?
I take your top 18. Normally I take your top 18.
See, look at these homeworks I did good on. And I read it.
There are some. That shows me that you know how to do it.
I do.
Yes, but also that just kind of makes the other ones look worse. Like if all of your homeworks were bad, I'd be like, okay, maybe Daniel's
What
just
is
dumb.
this?
But instead, some of your homeworks are
Wait,
good.
so I'm not failing. I'm not failing.
I didn't write it.
I'm not failing then?
It was so evident.
I can't tell you that because I haven't done a full progress report because I haven't done
There's no
sermon
way I'm
summaries.
failing. I can't do failing.
In any case,
Yeah, I'm not feeling
I forget what I was going to say now. Oh, because I lost a bunch of grades, I'm only expecting 12 sermon summaries for the year, whereas
Wait, what if
normally I
you
take
say
18.
16 or
Normally I ask for 18.
Oh, I'm done then, probably.
No,
No.
you're not.
Eight?
Nobody's done.
I'm probably like
How many
eight.
do I have?
I'll let you know as soon as I get these graded. I'm sorry I don't have them graded yet. Just be patient with me, please.